She's a mama, a wife with a story to share. At WriteOver Coffee, find hope and repair. From heartbreak to healing, through Christ she's free. Your past don't define you, be who you're meant to be. WriteOver Coffee, where healing begins.
Good morning. Today we're going to be talking about to be a man, a silent weight they carry. Did you know that men are hurting quietly? Fathers are carrying pressure they were never taught how to process. Single dads are trying to provide while silently battling exhaustion, depression, loneliness, shame, anger, and emotional shutdowns. This episode really means a lot to me because we're going to open the door to conversations many men never feel safe enough to have. The pressure to provide, the fear of failing, the internal dialogue no one hears, and the emotional burden of trying to stay strong while falling apart internally. Inspired by the emotional turns echoed in To Be a Man, this podcast dives into fatherhood, mental health, masculinity, emotional healing, and silent mental things that men battle every day. So what do you mean I'm not here? That sentence alone probably breaks more fathers internally than people realize. Because in his mind, he's thinking, I work every day, I make sure the bills are paid, I sacrifice sleep, I carry stress silently, I put myself last, so how can you say I'm absent? But here's the heartbreaking reality. Many men were taught how to survive, not how to process emotionally. They were taught, be strong, don't cry, handle it, man up, keep moving. And eventually, that emotional suppression turns into depression, bitterness, isolation, anger, emotional shutdown, and numbness, to be honest. And today, we're having that real conversation, not filtered version, not the surface level version, the honest one. So grab your coffee, sit with me for just a little while. This is WriteOver Coffee, and I'm Elizabeth. All right. So I'm sure some of you are like, you're a woman, you can't talk about this. I was raised by a single dad. I have a lot of single guy friends that have divorced and they're just crazy. So come on. A little boy falls down crying, right? And instead of someone saying, talk to me, what hurts? Many boys hear, stop crying, you're fine, shake it off, be tough, right? And slowly that little boy learns emotions are unsafe. So he grows up into a man who fears deeply, but has no idea how to express it. A father sits in his truck after work, hands on the steering wheel, bills are stacked in the passenger seat, phone buzzing, because I'm sure it's probably the wife or their friends or their kids, and their mind is racing like it's so much. And before he walks into that house, he takes a deep breath and says quietly, don't fall apart right now. You got this. Nobody sees that moment. Nobody hears that internal war. Because internally, they're saying, I can't break down. Everyone depends on me. I don't even know how to explain what I'm feeling. And what if I'm failing? But scripture tells us that cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. That's in 1 Peter 5:7. So guys, take a moment, get out some paper, or get out if you're anything like my husband, you'll get out your phone and put it on your notes. Write these down. What emotions were you taught to suppress? What did vulnerability begin feeling unsafe? And what does emotional honesty look like for you today? A lot of fathers, I'm going to put my coffee down, genuinely believe if I provide, then I'm loving my family. But honestly, that belief comes from survival because many men were never taught emotional connection. So when someone says you're emotionally unavailable, to a man, they hear you're failing as a father, you're failing as a human. A single dad works overtime all week, right? Misses dinners, misses sleep, misses rest. And then hears, you're never around. And suddenly exhaustion becomes resentment to that person that said that. Because internally he's screaming, do you know what I sacrificed to keep this family afloat? Nobody sees what I'm carrying. I'm trying. I don't know how to do both. If I stop moving, everything will fall apart. Listen, in scripture it says, come to me who are all weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Matthew 11:28. Look it up, because that's a really good one. So, dads, ask yourself, do you feel valued only for what you provide? What does emotional presence mean to you? And what pressures are you carrying silently? This isn't something that a woman is just talking about. This is me, because I'm talking about from my dad's experience, who was a single dad. I'm talking about my husband, who's been here. So men in depression, nobody notices. Men's depression is often hidden. Sometimes it doesn't look like tears. Sometimes it looks like irritability, emotional shutdown. That's my husband. Anger, overworking, isolation. That was my dad. Silence. That was my dad. And never slowing down. Because slowing down to them means feeling. And many men are terrified of what they feel if they finally stop running and what it's going to mean emotionally. A father falls asleep scrolling on his phone at 2 a.m. because he doesn't want to sit alone in his thoughts. The house is quiet, everyone's asleep, and for the first time all day, the distractions stop. That's when the thoughts get louder and louder and louder. And that's when these thoughts of, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I feel alone, why do I feel empty, I can't let anyone know I'm struggling. That one right there, I can't let anyone know I'm struggling. That is a true man's thought. But the Lord is close to the brokenhearted. That's Psalm 34:18. Read it. He is close. So what do you use to avoid emotional pain? When was the last time you admitted you were struggling? What would happen if you asked for help? Yeah, I'm talking to you. All the men that are listening, I'm talking to you. Anger is often pain wearing armor. A lot of men were only allowed one emotion growing up, and that was anger. Not grief, not fear, not sadness. So emotional pain comes out sideways. So here's the human moment. A father snaps over something super small, a mess, a noise, spilt milk, a forgotten chore, right? But underneath that reaction is months, maybe years of exhaustion and emotional overload. And afterward, he sits there ashamed, thinking, that's not who I want to be. So then they start thinking, why am I always angry? Why can't I calm down? I hate how I react. In some days, I don't want my kids scared of me. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to be angry. It's James 1:19. So ask yourself, what emotion lives underneath that anger? What stress have you ignored so long? And what healthy outlets could help you decompress? Did y'all know that many fathers quietly feel emotionally invisible? Did you know that, women? People notice what dads provide, but not always what they carry. So like a dad fixes everything around the house, works long hours, handles emergencies. Yet at night, I bet you anything he's wondering, if I disappeared emotionally, would anyone notice? And that loneliness hits them deep. In their heads, they're thinking, I feel unappreciated. Nobody asks how I'm doing. I'm tired of carrying everything. I just want peace. Galatians 6:2 says, carry each other's burdens. Women, you've got to stop thinking about yourselves and actually think about them too, because they are human. Just as much as you are, they're human too. So guys, dads, ask yourself, men, when was the last time someone checked on you? What makes you feel emotionally valued? And do you allow yourself to receive support? This one is going to go out to the single dads here. Single dads carry unique emotional pressure, right? Trying to be the provider, protector, emotional support, disciplinarian, encourager, all at once. That was my dad. And many are doing it while grieving relationships, financial pressure, and loneliness. Here's the real human moment here. A single father finally gets the kid to sleep. The house is quiet, and suddenly the silence feels heavy. Not peaceful, heavy. Because for the first time all day, he feels how alone he really is. So the internal part, I don't know if I'm enough. I'm scared of failing my kids. I miss having someone beside me. I'm trying so hard. To be honest, that's the way my dad felt a lot of times for me. God is your refuge and strength and ever-present help in trouble. That's Psalm 46:1. So single dads, what support system do you currently have? What loneliness are you avoiding talking about? And what would help you feel emotionally supported? Figure those out. Talk to somebody. So back to many men. Many men were never taught emotional processing. Most of them don't. I'm going to say most of them, okay? So instead, they distract, avoid, numb, isolate themselves, overwork themselves and they just weren't taught that. And unhealed pain eventually affects relationships. Human moment. Here we go. A father says, I'm fine. But his body says otherwise. Like, and my husband gets irritated when I can read his physical demeanor because his body is saying something else. But then there's headaches, the irritability, the sleepless nights, the emotional distance. Pain eventually surfaces somewhere else. And scripture tells us in Proverbs 4:23, above all else, guard your heart. So what pain, men, have you buried instead of being healed? How do you cope when overwhelmed? Don't ask my husband because he'll give you a crazy answer. And what healing have you been postponing? Did y'all know, women, that many men don't have an emotional safe space anywhere? Not at work, not socially, sometimes not even at home. Hey, let me say something here. When I say they don't have an emotional safe space and not at work, not every man, because I've said this, I've been here, I've done that, not every man whenever we say, well, you get to go to work as I'm staying home and I'm working on the kids and I'm working here and I'm working there. No, that's not right. That's not his safe space. You're just seeing the surface part of it. You're not seeing that internal part of it. That's not their safe space. That's where they go to provide. That's where they go. They're not emotionally disconnected. They're not doing that. So let's stop saying that. Because vulnerability feels risky for them. So here's a real human moment. A man starts opening up emotionally, right? Then stops halfway because he suddenly feels embarrassed for even trying. Or maybe he stops because we women have triggered something in them that they're like, forget it. I'm not doing it. Nobody wants to hear this. I sound weak. I should just deal with it. I'll just keep it to myself. Because we as women don't know how to stay in our lane. Focus on that for a second. Confess your struggles to one another and pray for one another. James 5:16. That's huge for a man. Please read that scripture, men. So ask yourselves, men, who feels emotionally safe to you? What keeps you from opening up? And what kind of support do you need the most? Because fathers feel guilty for resting, like slowing down equals weakness, but exhaustion changes people emotionally. So here's a real human moment. A dad sits in silence after everyone falls asleep, okay? So not because he's avoiding family, but because it's the only moment nobody needs something from him. Nothing. Isaiah 40:29, the first part of that says, he gives strength to the weary. So fathers, men, single dads, single men, married men without any kids, when was the last time you rested? What does burnout look like for you? Do you believe you deserve peace? And women, a lot of men secretly believe if I struggle, I'm weak. So they hide their depression, they hide their fear, and they hide their anxiety. And shame grows in silence. Here's an example. A father sits in a crowded room feeling completely alone emotionally, smiling externally, but falling apart internally. Yes, women. Yes, wives. Yes, men have emotions. It's not always about you. 2 Corinthians 12:9, my grace is sufficient for you, and my power is made perfect in weakness. Men, what shame are you carrying? What are you afraid people would think if they knew the truth? And what would self-compassion look like for you? Look, when fathers can heal emotionally, generations change. Children learn emotional safety, communication improves, and cycles are broken. Real human moment here. A father apologizes to his child after losing his temper, and in that moment, healing begins. That's where it begins, because accountability is strength too. Psalms 51:10, the first part of it says, create in me a clean heart. Men, what generational cycles are you breaking? What kind of father do you want your children to remember? And what healing needs your attention now? This goes out to all the men, because all the men, fathers, men in general, anybody, any man, fathers need other fathers. Men need other conversation without mask, not surface level talk, real conversations. And that looks like pressure, mental health, parenting, grief, loneliness, failures, healing. Because what I saw my dad was isolation magnified his pain. And Ecclesiastes, I can't say words today, 4:9, two are better than one, right? So do you isolate when you're struggling? And what community could support you? And who can walk alongside you right now? Because real strength looks different. Real strength is not emotional suppression. Real strength is honesty, healing, communication, self-awareness. So a father says, I need help. A man says, I need help. And instead of weakness, that moment becomes courage. It becomes courage. Men of courage, men of faith, men of God. 2 Corinthians 12:10, when I am weak, I am strong. So what version of masculinity were you taught? And what version do you want to become? What does strength truly mean to you now? To all the men that are listening right now, to the father carrying silent stress, to the man overwhelmed mentally, to the single dad trying not to collapse emotionally, to the provider who feels unseen, you matter too. Not just your paycheck, not just your responsibilities, you. And maybe nobody taught you how to process emotions safely, but healing is still possible. And asking for support does not make you weak. It makes you human. We're all human. You know, one of the saddest things in this world is how many men silently suffer while still showing up every day, still going to work, still paying bills, still fixing things around the house, helping their friends fix things, and still carrying responsibility, while internally feeling exhausted, disconnected, lonely, and emotionally overwhelmed. And somewhere along the way, many men have learned my value comes from what I produce, not who they are, not what they feel, just what they provide or bring to the table. But fathers are more than providers. Men need support, rest, emotional safety, encouragement, healing, community, and grace. I'm not getting upset with you women. I'm just saying that as a woman that did that to my husband, anger, bitterness, depression, anxiety, it took years to help him. Why? Because I was selfish, because all I saw was a paycheck. I didn't see his worth. I didn't see that deep down pain that he was carrying from his, childhood trauma. Because boy, did he have some. He had some silent demons. But all I saw was that he was providing. All I saw was that money. He's a man. He can handle it himself. I'm being real and honest here, ladies. They struggle too. And some of the strongest men are the ones quietly fighting battles nobody sees. That was my husband. So to every father listening today, every man listening today, your children do not need perfection. Your spouse doesn't need perfection. What they need is you. Present, healing, trying, growing, learning. They need you. And today's conversation hits somewhere deep inside of you. Please don't carry it alone. Reach out, talk to somebody, find your community, get some support. And if you need coaching, encouragement, or someone to talk to and walk alongside you with grief, parenting, emotional overwhelmness, visit my website, elizabethkgreen.com for coaching. I offer coaching and support to people navigating real life struggles emotionally, for healing relationships and grief, and for personal growth, because nobody should survive silently. This is WriteOver Coffee, and I'm Elizabeth. And I want to leave you with this. A strong man is not a man who never breaks. A strong man is one who learns how to heal without losing his heart. And remember, you're not alone. Today's episode is sponsored by Mains by Miriam. Men deserve self-care too. Whether you're carrying stress, burnouts, emotional exhaustion, or simply need a reset, taking care of yourself matters. More than just hair, it's a place you can breathe, recharge, and feel human again. So call 682-417-4260. She's in Kennedale, Texas, and schedule your appointment with her today. I promise. We got this.
Write over coffee, where healing begins.